This is Neverland, the currently for sale former home and playground of music icon Michael Jackson. It's 10 years since the star performer died, but he continues to make news. The headlines these days, though, are less about him being king of pop, more about him being king of the kids, and persistent claims the eccentric megastar was a child abuser. His latest accuser is Adrian McManus, who knew the star's private life too well. For 4 years, she cleaned up after him here. And tonight, for the first time, tells us what the maid saw.
I think that he was starting to realize that maybe I was catching on, because I got a call from him. He called me on Mother's Day. It was a Sunday morning at my home. He said, "I want to ask you something." And I said, "Yeah, okay." And I kid you not, he asked me about 8 times, "What do you know?" And I said, "Mr. Jackson, I don't know what you want me to tell you. What do you know, Adrian?"
That was the question. What do you know?
What do you know? I was starting to get really, really frightened. I was scared to tell him anything. I was terrified of him.
Adrian McManus was once a trusted member of Michael Jackson's inner circle. Now, she is his accuser. From 1990 to 1994, she was his housemaid, with intimate access to the inner sanctum of the most famous person on earth. It's often said he could be a very generous man when he wanted to be. Did you find that?
There were some different sides to him. There was a kind side to him, and yet there was a dark side. And I feel that he was a manipulator. And I feel that anybody that came in contact with him, he destroyed them. They've been destroyed.
And these accusations are not being made by Adrian McManus alone. New explosive allegations have been made by 2 men who were once very close and very loyal to the singer. Claims they were abused as children and their families exploited in the worst possible way. So why now? What's driving these claims? Was Michael Jackson really a harmless, troubled genius, or a cold, calculating serial predator? Adrian McManus is nervous on the drive through the Santa Ynez Valley to her old place of work. She hasn't been back to Michael Jackson's Neverland ranch in 20 years. Just coming up this road gives you anxiety.
Yeah. It's kind of like facing your nightmare, you know?
The singer's fans still flock here for a glimpse of their idol's refuge. But for Adrian, it's far from a happy place. Up for sale for $67 million US, Neverland remains empty and off limits to visitors. A place frozen in time from when Michael Jackson ruled the world. From child prodigy to moonwalking megastar.
People always told me, be careful what you do. Don't go around breaking young girls' hearts.
There was no artist like him before or since. When you started working at Neverland, what was it like?
There was rules. There were a lot of rules that you had to follow. You don't stare at him. You don't ask him for an autograph. You do what he tells you to do. You don't question it. You just do it.
Within 3 months of becoming a member of the team, she began cleaning Michael Jackson's bedroom. Michael Jackson must have trusted you.
Yes, he did. He told me that I was excellent. And I did tell him, you know, maybe I'm not the person for you. And he said, "No, Adrian, you're excellent. Loyalty to me means a lot. You can be with me forever." The first time I cleaned his bedroom, I didn't even know where to start.
He was the sort of classic rock star, was he? He just sort of dropped everything behind him and let you pick it up.
Yeah, he was like that.
Home videos from the time captured the singer relaxing at Neverland. It was a place to live out his fantasies, and he shared the fun with the children he surrounded himself with. What was the first thing for you? What made you first suspect that Michael Jackson had an unhealthy interest in children?
I noticed that there were a lot of little boys. That's all that would hang around there. You wouldn't see like little girls, and I knew the little boys were there. When they would arrive, they would put their clothes in a suitcase in his room. I started realizing, thinking, wondering, when he was taking baths with them, they were sleeping in his bed.
But there's sleeping and there's sleeping.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about the worst kind of sleeping with children.
Yes. I know the truth. I was there. And when I would go in the next day, there were little boys' underwears either on the floor with Michael's or they were in the jacuzzi.
So you were suspicious as soon as you saw that?
Yeah, I got suspicious. And then I would find underwears also in his bed. I did find underwears that were men's briefs in the walk-in closet. And they were, I don't like to say this, they were like crunchy, hard, with yellow stains all over them. I didn't know who they belonged to because the little boys started wearing Michael's briefs and they would leave their underwears inside his drawer.
The more Adrian saw, the more convinced she was that Michael Jackson was a predator. A feeling she says was shared by other staff at Neverland.
There was a lot of Vaseline at Neverland. Sometimes it was found in the golf carts when Mr. Jackson would take off with the boys.
Vaseline?
Yeah, Vaseline. And there was a lot of Vaseline in Michael's bedroom. It was actually all over the ranch.
Is there possibly an innocent explanation for that?
I don't think so.
What disturbed Adrian the most was the way the pop star would be physical with the kids who were entrusted to his care.
They were sitting on his laps, the kids. I just saw a lot of maybe fondling, him maybe rubbing his hands in kids' hair, kissing them.
When you say fondling?
Hugging, kind of petting the kids.
Petting the kids where?
Kind of by the rear end. I didn't think it was appropriate because they're not his children, you know? I just didn't think it was right.
Did you ever talk to anybody about it?
You know, I signed a confidentiality agreement, and I was already conditioned and programmed, you don't question it. And we were told to stay away from the family. You're just a maid, you do your job.
Every time we were together, it happened. There was no night that went by that I was with him that he didn't sexually abuse me.
Adrian is not the only one to be speaking out on the 10th anniversary of Michael Jackson's death.
I was 7 years old. Michael asked, "Do you and the family want to come to Neverland?"
Hello, Wade. Today is your birthday, so congratulations. I love you. Goodbye.
Australian choreographer Wade Robson has claimed he was molested by the singer when he was a boy.
He told me if they ever found out what we were doing, he and I would go to jail for the rest of our lives.
Now he and former child actor James Safechuck have gone much further, accusing Jackson of the most despicable depravity. In a controversial documentary, Leaving Neverland, that was recently unveiled at the Sundance Film Festival.
There are fans of Mr. Jackson who don't believe your story or perhaps don't want to believe it. Is there anything that you feel that you can say to them?
In a way, not that long ago, I was in the same position they were. Even though it happened to me, I still couldn't believe it. And I still couldn't believe that what Michael did was a bad thing.
Would you have thought 14 years later all this would be regurgitated?
I would never have imagined such a thing happening. I just still have trouble comprehending it.
For lawyer Tom Mesereau, the latest allegations are the claims of opportunists out to make a buck.
I can't get over it. I mean, I just don't put any credibility in any of this. I just don't.
Justice was done. The man's innocent. He always was.
In 2005, he helped clear Jackson of child molestation charges and defends the singer to this day.
I am 100% convinced Michael never abused a child, never harmed a child, certainly never molested a child. I think this is hogwash.
Are you on any sort of retainer at all from the Jackson estate?
No, I'm not on any retainer at all.
So no one's paying you any money to say nice things about Michael Jackson?
No. I will always say he was a nice person. He was. He was one of the nicest people I ever met.
But you, of all people, know the smoke and fire argument. Is there any fire?
There's no fire here whatsoever.
Coming up.
He used his fame and power in very loving and also very childish and mean ways.
Inside the playground of evil. Did you at any time see Michael Jackson molest Jordan Chandler?
It was terrible.
Desperate bribes.
$300. That was for covering for him.
Death threats.
If they could hire a hitman to take me out, slice my neck.
And Michael Jackson's darkest secrets. We just want to show you this.
I remember that. I was working there when he was taping that.
That's next on 60 Minutes.
He was enormous. It shouldn't have been king of pop. It should have been god of pop, emperor of pop. Charisma isn't even the word for the spell he had on people. So I was caught up in it too. Everything around him was a fantasy.
Jeannie Wolfe is an old-school entertainment reporter who followed Michael Jackson's career right from the start.
In Jam, the latest video from the hit album Dangerous.
She regarded Jackson as the ultimate creative genius, but also saw a dark side.
I couldn't help but observe what a spoiled king of pop he was, how he used his fame and power in very loving and also very childish and mean ways.
Jeannie remembers how, at the height of Jackson's fame, it was easy for starstruck families and their kids to be drawn into the singer's magical world. Surrounding himself as he did with children, didn't you ever find that unusual?
We didn't think much was unusual. He tried to be the Pied Piper. When I was around him, they were in groups. And all these little kids, some costumed, some just regular kids following him. And it just seemed like a comfort for him. And his explanation was he didn't have a childhood. Yes, did it seem strange? Did it seem eccentric? Yes. But that eccentricity allowed him to get away with a lot because it's Michael.
In the 1990s, busloads of children would be invited to Neverland to enjoy the theme park and the zoo.
As you come down this way, you're gonna see the game room is right there. Don't fall out.
But Jackson's maid, Adrian McManus, says there was always a lucky few who seemed to receive special attention. Young boys like Home Alone actor Macaulay Culkin, who she claims she saw being touched inappropriately by the singer. You're on record, you're on public record, court record, is talking about Macaulay Culkin. Do you stand by that story?
I stand by what I said during my deposition. You know, I think it's best just leave it at that.
Because Macaulay Culkin says it's preposterous, doesn't he?
Yeah,
He denies it to this day.
he does.
But you say it did happen.
I say I saw what I saw.
Macaulay Culkin has always supported Michael Jackson and denies the singer ever molested him. But back in 1993, another of Jackson's young male friends turned against him. 13-year-old Jordan Chandler accused Jackson of sexually abusing him during sleepovers at Neverland. Did you at any time see Michael Jackson molest Jordan Chandler?
I saw some stuff that I didn't think was appropriate with Mr. Jackson and Jordy.
What sort of things did you see with Jordan Chandler?
Michael kissing on him. Michael's hands kind of very close to Jordy's crotch. It was terrible to see.
Police launched an investigation into the abuse allegations. And Jordan Chandler's family announced they were preparing a civil case. But despite her strong suspicions to the contrary, in a sworn deposition, Adrian McManus said she had never witnessed Jackson molest children.
I was scared to say anything bad about Michael, Mr. Jackson. And then after that, after I did the deposition, probably 30 days maybe after, Michael called me at my home.
She claims Jackson demanded to know what his personal maid had told investigators about his behaviour. Adrian found herself in an unenviable position.
I didn't think I was supposed to be doing that. I was kind of worried about that. But then I thought, well, you better do it, you know? So I did it. And then one day in the afternoon, he came up to me and he said, Adrian, this is for you. And he handed me a little index card that was like stapled on the sides. And it said, thanks for everything. I opened it and it was $300. So that was for covering for him. He paid me $300.
He was buying your silence for $300.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson fired back at his accusers in a live televised announcement from Neverland.
There have been many disgusting statements made recently concerning allegations of improper conduct on my part. These statements about me are totally false. Don't treat me like a criminal, because I am innocent.
I remember that. I was working there when he was taping that.
1993.
Mm-hmm.
Don't treat me like a criminal because I'm innocent. Does that bring back strong memories?
It takes me back to that day. And it makes me mad that I had to be involved in something like that. Why me?
So you don't believe those protestations one tiny bit?
I don't.
Jackson was never charged with molesting Jordan Chandler, but the young boy and his family received a $20 million settlement from the singer. It led to intense criticism. Jackson was buying the silence of his victims.
Did you ever sexually engage, fondle, have sexual contact with this child or any other child?
Never, ever. I could never harm a child or anyone. It's not in my heart. It's not who I am. And it's not what I'm not even interested in that.
This is Joy Robson. You've known Michael Jackson. How would you describe your relationship with Michael?
Well, Michael's like family to us. He's been very supportive personally and with Wade's career. He's a very...
At the time, many came to Jackson's defense, including Wade Robson and his family. Wade was the 10-year-old Australian boy who developed an extremely tight bond with the singer and was still having sleepovers at the Neverland Ranch.
Wade, How would you describe your relationship with Michael?
It's a real close relationship. It's both sides friendly and business. We love each other both very dearly. We're just real good friends.
How did you feel when you heard that a boy was alleging that Michael had abused him?
I was shocked too, and I think it's sick, because I know Michael well enough that he wouldn't do anything like that. I know that for a fact.
After Jackson paid millions to settle the case against Jordan Chandler, things changed for the worst for the workers at Neverland. Adrian McManus claims she and other staff were victimised by Michael Jackson's security guards because they knew too much.
I was threatened. His bodyguards told me that if I ever came up on TV, that they could hire a hitman to take me out, slice my neck, would never find my body.
And you believed them?
Yeah, I did. I lived in fear for many, many years.
Adrian lived with the fear, and Michael Jackson lived with the rumours.
Boy.
Come on, just get up
I'm
and show
shy.
me. Oh, come on, just show me. Just show me. Just show me.
But in 2003, he made a monumental mistake. By inviting journalist Martin Bashir to show his life at Neverland.
Do you come out here on your own?
Yeah.
How often?
All the time.
You just come out on your own?
Yes.
What, and go on a ride?
Yep. Usually the carousel, I play music. I love playing classical music on the carousel.
The documentary, Living with Michael Jackson, gave an insight into the madness that engulfed the singer's every move.
Michael Jackson had just dangled his new baby out of the window of a Berlin hotel.
Here's the bottom.
It's okay, just get this off.
Ow! Oh, please don't try to blanket. Oh, blanket, put it away. Okay, here we go. Abu, Abu, Abu. Yes, Abu. Blanket, 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 blanket. I love you, blanket. Yes.
Michael Jackson hoped the documentary would turn his reputation around. Instead, it destroyed it.
Have you been hearing about what people have been saying?
That's totally ignorant. I would never do that to my children or any child. Try to kill them? Come on, stupid. And why would I put a scarf over the baby's face if I was trying to throw him off the balcony?
I think the Martin Bashir documentary was a disaster for Michael Jackson. I think he never should have trusted Mr. Bashir to do an objective, professional documentary.
Jackson's lawyer, Tom Mesereau, believes it was a turning point. Why do you think that? You think the result was slanted, do you?
I think Mr. Bashir turned it all against him, tried to create a sensationalist documentary for personal gain. That's my opinion. And it was spliced together and put together in a way which, in my opinion, was designed to make Michael look bad.
What looked particularly bad was this. 12-year-old Gavin Arvizo had been recovering from cancer when Jackson met and befriended him. In the documentary, Martin Bashir asked the young boy about the sleeping arrangements at Neverland.
And then he finally said, okay, if you love me, you sleep on the bed. I was like, oh man. And so I finally slept on the bed.
But Michael, you know, you're a 44-year-old man now. What do you get out of this? What do you get out of this?
Why can't you share your bed? The most loving thing to do is to share your bed with someone. You know?
You really think that?
Yeah, of course.
After the broadcast, Michael Jackson accused Bashir of betraying his trust and manipulating the interview. But the fuse was lit. Police raided Neverland Ranch.
Well, there's also a door.
Approximately 70 sheriffs raided Neverland, scoured every building, every room for computers, for documentary evidence, anything they could find. They were relentless in their efforts to find evidence to convict Michael Jackson with.
And in a raid of that size, what did they find?
Nothing, in my opinion.
Michael Jackson was arrested and charged. It was a humiliating downfall that would see Jackson's dirty laundry aired before the world. Coming up, the Jackson fight back. So you think it's all tied into money?
Yes, money and fame and publicity.
The maid under pressure. How do we know you're telling the truth now? But always defiant.
I know the truth. I can sleep very good at night.
That's next on 60 Minutes. Adrian McManus claims she has been left penniless by her 4 years working at Neverland as Michael Jackson's housemaid. When she left in 1994, she and 4 other employees sued the singer for wrongful termination and lost. Do you still owe the Jackson estate money?
I probably do, but Michael's dead now, you know.
You must know the amount.
Well, you know, I know that I can't remember. It might have been, oh God, it was a lot of money.
You were ordered to pay legal fees initially.
Yeah, for breach of contract, for suing Mr. Jackson.
Which was what, 1.6 million?
It was probably, yeah.
Just to refresh your memory.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
The sheriff hasn't come knocking at the door yet.
No.
And you hope they don't.
Well, they do, they do.
In a countersuit, Jackson's estate accused her of stealing belongings from Neverland to sell to the media.
There was a sketch that I found in the trash.
You then on-sold that sketch, the sketch of Elvis that you supposedly found in the trash.
I figured, well, I found it in the trash. It didn't mean anything to me, which I shouldn't have did that, you know, but I did.
And the jury said that you then owed Michael Jackson $34,000.
Yeah.
From that theft.
Yeah.
So did you pay the $34,000 back?
No, I didn't. No.
You haven't paid any of that back either?
No.
The credibility of Adrian McManus has again been questioned because of her changing account of what she saw at Neverland. Sworn evidence she gave in 1993 that she never saw any inappropriate behaviour by Jackson towards any child. At Michael Jackson's trial, you were found to have lied under oath.
Okay, now I'm going to explain that. When Michael threatened me, I was scared of what was going to happen to me and my family and my son.
You admit to not telling the truth.
Yeah, because he threatened me.
How do we know you're telling the truth now?
Well, let's put it this way. I know the truth. I can sleep very good at night. I'm happy I did what I did by standing up and trying to do the right thing.
You've got to look very carefully at people's motives, and you've got to look very carefully at the facts. You've got the most famous person in the world, one of the wealthiest people in the world, perceived as very vulnerable, okay? And people constantly tried to exploit him throughout his lifetime.
For lawyer Tom Mesereau, so much of what was aimed at Michael Jackson was about cold, hard cash.
People wanted to make so much money on watching the great Michael Jackson rise high and then splatter. They wanted the story to have a miserable ending for him. They hoped they would see him in the courtroom in chains and jail clothes, without makeup, without his hair fixed up, without the clothing he liked to wear. They were looking forward to seeing the final chapter where Michael Jackson gets destroyed. And it was very disheartening to observe.
So you think it's all tied into money?
Yes, money and fame and publicity.
Including what he views as the latest trumped-up charges of child abuse. Some of these accusers have not just changed their story slightly, they've done a 180. Is there a possible explanation in the Me Too movement where people now feel more comfortable saying publicly, look, I was abused. Can we now please do something about it?
Right now, if you are accused of this type of thing, you are almost judged guilty before you can defend yourself. I think right now we're going a little too far, and a lot of people who are not honest, who are trying to capitalize on this particular movement, are raising accusations that need to be challenged.
You don't think the freedom of the Me Too movement could be explained for these latest accusers coming up and saying that Michael Jackson molested them?
I think the freedom of the Me Too movement has allowed false accusations to be made as well as real accusations. And we've got to be very careful to make sure we sift out what's real and what's false.
Coming up, the King of Pop in court.
I think it's worse to be charged with something like this than homicide.
Disputed testimony.
I saw a good bunch of people who I felt very deeply were lying.
And an extraordinary result. Were you surprised by the outcome?
Celebrities can do no wrong in today's world.
That's next on 60 Minutes.
Why can't you share your bed? The most loving thing to do is to share your bed with someone.
By agreeing to participate in Martin Bashir's documentary, Michael Jackson, with the innocent assistance of his 12-year-old friend Gavin Arvizo, had given police all the reason they needed to investigate.
Well, there's also a door.
America, indeed the world, had never seen anything like it. In 2005, Jackson's case came to court. And so the stage was set for what would be one of the biggest trials of the century. It was a showdown more than a decade in the making and covered by twice as many media as turned up for the O.J. Simpson trial. Jackson faced 14 counts, from child molestation to conspiring to imprison the accuser and his family at the Neverland Ranch. If found guilty, he faced at least 20 years in jail.
These are horrific charges. These are ugly, nasty charges. I think it's worse to be charged with something like this than homicide. I really do.
The 14-week trial was a circus.
I think you have just seen that it takes about 20 minutes to make it 100 yards when you're in Mr. Jackson's company.
I love my fans. I love my fans.
Every day, crowds would gather to see the King of Pop.
This case is about one thing only. It's about the dignity, the integrity, the decency, the honor, the charity, the innocence, and the complete vindication of a wonderful human being named Michael Jackson.
Hollywood journalist Jeannie Wolfe saw things very differently.
I saw people who were out to get Michael Jackson. I saw people who were angry at Michael Jackson. I also saw people who adored him. And then I saw a good bunch of people who I felt very deeply were lying, were getting paid, were getting influenced. I found the whole thing frightening.
On which side do you think people were lying?
They were lying in favor of Michael Jackson.
In his defense?
In his defense, saying that nothing ever happened.
Adrian McManus took the stand to give evidence against her former employer.
It was pretty crazy. I wasn't shocked that it was happening again, because I knew it was going to happen again. Do you know what I'm saying?
You always thought a trial sooner or later was going to come along, did you?
Yeah, I did. Yes, I did. Sad to say, but yeah.
Wade Robson, who's now accusing Michael Jackson of abusing him throughout his childhood, was the star witness for the defense.
He was very, very strong in his defense of Michael Jackson. He told me in no uncertain terms he had not been molested, he had not been abused, and that these claims were ridiculous. I mean, this man was so strongly supportive of Michael Jackson, so powerful in his defense of Michael Jackson, that it just shocks me that he's changed his story in recent years. I just can't get over it.
As the trial reached a conclusion, the strain on Michael Jackson was starting to show.
I watched him deteriorate physically and emotionally during the trial. He lost weight, his cheeks became more sunken in. By verdict day, he just looked like a shell of his old self to me.
After 8 days of deliberation, the jury reached its verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty of attempting to commit a lewd act upon a minor child.
A unanimous decision of not guilty on all charges. That moment in the courtroom when they said not guilty, how many times?
14.
14 times. What was that like?
That was one of the most unique, powerful, unusual experiences of my lifetime.
What did Michael Jackson say to you?
He said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Never forget it.
For Michael Jackson, it was vindication. But the damage was done, and life at Neverland would never be the same again. Were you surprised by the outcome?
No, I wasn't surprised because I think in today's world, a lot of jurors, they don't like to say that a celebrity is guilty.
Why not?
Because they think they're above everybody else. They look up to them. And they right away think everybody wants money. That's why, celebrities can do no wrong in today's world. That's what I think.
Coming up, the biggest headline of all.
We have a gentleman here that needs help and he's not breathing yet.
Very eerie to even be around here. I've never visited this place before.
The stories that won't go away. Talk about their abuse, make these new accusations. Do you believe them?
It would be very hard not to believe them.
And returning to Neverland one last time.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm coming back here. Very mixed emotions.
That's next on 60 Minutes. Michael Jackson might have been found not guilty of child sexual abuse in 2005, but the trial and the lurid headlines it created irreparably damaged his career. Never again would he hit the highs of the musical stardom he had once known.
These will be my final show performances in London. This will be it. This is it. And when I say this is it, it really means this is it. Because
In 2009, though, at 50 years of age, he announced one last shot.
that's why we rehearse. It's okay, it's okay.
Jackson called his farewell tour This Is It, and sold out 50 concerts at London's O2 Arena.
We have a gentleman here that needs help and he's not breathing yet.
But less than 3 weeks from the start of the tour, Michael Jackson made his biggest headline ever when he overdosed on prescription drugs and died.
We have a personal doctor here with him, sir. Oh, you have a doctor there? Yes, but he's not responding to anything, to no.
On the day Michael died, where were you?
I came home, and their father called me, and he said, "Kat, you have to come down to the hospital."
Like the rest of the world, news of Jackson's death was met with disbelief by his family, as his mum, Catherine, told Liz Hayes in 2013.
Nobody would say anything. And I said, "Well, where's Michael? I want to go to his room. I want to go and visit him," Nobody said anything. And then finally, in about 10 or 15 minutes later, they took me to a room, and nobody would say anything. So finally, I said, "Well, did he make it?"
And I was screaming like, did he make it? And Frank finally said slowly, no, he didn't make it. I don't know what happened after that. I guess I must have blacked out or screamed or something, but that's what happened.
So this was the same mistake I've made.
More than 1 billion people watched a funeral service that was broadcast live around the world. The curtain closing on one of the greatest entertainers who ever lived. This is where Michael spent his last few hours.
It's very eerie to even be around here. I've never visited this place before. I've never even wanted to.
Returning to the mansion where Michael Jackson died is a reminder for Jeannie Wolfe of what has been lost. Once blinded by his star power, she now views him differently. Do you think, Jeannie, that these latest accusations have affected the Michael Jackson legacy?
I definitely do. I don't think people will look at him in the same way. I don't think his music will die. It's just too great. I think his music is beyond him, but the myth is gone.
But for Tom Mesereau, the lawyer who defended him, it's Michael Jackson who is the victim, not the boys who ended up in his bed in Neverland. You're one person that knows in life there's a lot of grey, not a lot of black and white. But you're adamant, aren't you? You don't think Michael Jackson has molested one single person.
Michael was a creative spirit. He danced to his own drummer. He saw things we don't see. He heard things we don't hear. He was a creative genius. He was eccentric, he was different, and he was an artist. I don't believe he was a molester for 5 seconds.
If we look at the history of this, though, the number of accusers, Chandler, Gavin Arvizo, Wade Robson now, Jimmy Safechuck, I mean, are they all making it up?
Let's look at them individually. Safechuck swore under penalty of perjury that he wasn't abused. Robson swore under penalty of perjury that he wasn't abused. Arvizo wasn't believed by the jury. 2 other people were paid off to end the litigation, to end the lawsuits so he could get on with his career. So when you look at everyone under a microscope, what do you really come up with? Not much.
Well, a lot more than most mere mortals face in their lifetime.
But he's the biggest target on the planet. He was the most famous person on the planet. He was immensely wealthy. He was perceived as immensely vulnerable. This made him a target throughout his life. And he's being attacked even in death by people who want money.
The days were filled with magical childhood adventure experiences. Playing tag, watching movies, eating junk food, anything you could ever want as a child. Out of a storybook, right? Out of a fairy tale.
Michael Jackson gave the world his music. But to his accusers, he took away so much. More than most, Jeannie Wolfe has listened to what they've said and believes their accounts of what happened at Neverland are convincing. Jeannie, you've seen and heard Wade Robson and Jimmy Safechuck.
Yes, I have.
Talk about their abuse, make these new accusations. Do you believe them?
It would be very hard not to believe them.
How do you explain their complete reversal of their stories?
They were both in love, as only a kid could be with Michael Jackson. Both of them have repeatedly said that Michael Jackson told them over and over again, we can never tell anyone, because if we do, I'll go to jail for life and you'll go to jail for life. So embedded in their mind was the imperative that we never tell this secret.
I can't believe I'm coming back here. Very mixed emotions.
Adrian McManus insists she's also telling the truth about Michael Jackson and what went on in Neverland, a place she would rather forget. When you see these gates again, what's the abiding memory?
Anxiety, misery. I would never go through those gates again, ever.
That's how you think about all those years here, is it? Misery.
Misery. A bad choice that I made.
If Michael Jackson was still alive today, do you think you would be speaking out like this?
If he was alive, I would say it. I would say it to his face. I really would. You know, I was 28 when I started working for him. These boys were young. If it was hard for me at that age, can you imagine how it was for them? There was another side to him, and I saw it. And I don't feel sorry for that. I just don't. I feel sorry for the children.
Hello, I'm Liam Bartlett. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.